Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. If you're wondering why I sound like I've been giggling, it's because I've just realised the reason I couldn't start the space was I'd set it up for next week. But there we go, we're back. It is September the 17th. It's September the 17th. This is the Great Market Blast with myself and the glorious, the glamorous. I've said gorgeous and glamorous. I don't know any other G's. Goddess of Grain, where Angie will provide a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in agricultural markets. But before she does, I will remind everyone that nothing discussed on this podcast represents any kind of trading ideas or endorsements, etc., by PIQ, myself, or indeed Angie herself. Hello, my love. How are you?
That'd be me. I'm good, except for my headphones are only
Knotted.
one ear
Knotted.
works.
They're knotted as
Yeah,
well. They're in
and
cables, aren't
knotted and twisted, and I'm gonna have to find where my other one. Yeah, because only one ear works right now, and so
they?
I
Pardon?
don't. Oh, yeah, I don't. It's not good. I can't hear you in my left ear, and it's freaking me out. But I'll be okay. I'll make it through. I will power through for you guys. In
You're the
this
best.
instance
You're
here.
the
So
best.
yeah, happy Wednesday. I don't really know what to talk. Like, there's so much to talk about.
And that's the end of
And
the
nothing.
show.
Right? Yeah, like congratulations. You made it through the end. So obviously, biggest thing that we're paying attention to today, I think, is going to be the Fed decision this afternoon.
Yeah.
Right? I think that we'll see. But I do think that, obviously the tone of the post decision presser, and I think there's some folks that are saying they wouldn't be surprised to see, 50 basis point. I don't think he'll go that. I mean, I guess I have a dog in the fight or a horse in the show or whatever, but I don't at the same time. And so it's just one of those things where we'll kind of see. I think the conversation post will be most interesting because does Powell address some of the data discrepancies? Does
Yeah.
he address, some of these other things that we've seen? Because obviously, the jobs number came out like 2 days post decision, the last little go around, like would things have been differently? Had he known differently, and this, that, and the other thing. So we'll watch that. Mostly because it's obviously going to have a big influence on the dollar. We saw the U.S. dollar trade to a new 4-year low versus the euro yesterday, which is kind of a big deal, especially when we're trying to maintain our competitiveness or build on our competitiveness into the world market.
Yeah.
So that'll, it probably influence the dollar, and it'll influence inflation talk, right? Like, do we start to see some inflationary pressure come into this whole entire thing? And do we see the inflation trade start to build in conversation, because it looks like we're going to do the continuing resolution at the end of the month, right? And we have a few other things where it's like, okay, we're just continuing to spend money like hell won't have it. Now we're going to be cutting interest rates and doing these types of things. I am not a very smart person. But
Lied.
2020 though was only just a smattering of years ago. You know what I mean? And I kind of remember the fall of 20 when the inflation conversation kind of started to pick up, and there were several things that just didn't make sense to me at that time. And I'm not saying it's a complete repeat, but we're kind of following suit at this point. We're not fixing the spending. We're not spending less. Countries around the world there's more conversation of stimulus here, there, and everywhere. And so I think you will see what Powell says post decision. And if there's any sort of conversation on concern over inflation, or if we just don't worry about that anymore, because, jobs is a mandate, and we are seeing,
Exactly.
a slowdown there. So,
Exactly. So, exactly. And on that, I think, we kind of know it's going to be a 25 cut no matter what Trump
yeah,
would hope for. If it is a 50, then I think the wheels are going to come off the markets because it could all go sideways because there's everyone's positioned for a 25 basis point cut.
yeah,
But I think if we were wanting to really focus on stuff to look at, one, it would be the dot plots because they're released this meeting. So we'll see what the current more longer term projections for interest rates are between the board members or committee members, and also the presser. I think the presser will be the key. So it'll be kind of reading between the lines and see what Trump says, regardless of, regarding what is going on the more data term. Because obviously there's a lot of pricing in the market now for 2 to even 3 cuts for the rest
mm-hmm.
of the year and going into early next year. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any pushback on that front.
Yes, yeah. So it'll be fun to watch, I guess.
Fun.
What I say is fun is weird, but I'm a nerd. And
People are
that's,
listening in and going, Angie, we are very different people.
right. That's just it. I'm like, woo, can't wait. So exciting. But anyway, So we'll get that. We'll see what's going on. Obviously we have the China conversation now. And we had a little
Do
bit
we
of
have
a,
to?
oh, I don't wanna, but I don't even know, like, I'm just like, what does this even mean? I have no idea, I guess. I thought I knew, and I don't know, you guys, honestly. And so the chip thing, it's been, that's been something that we've been talking about forever and ever. Like
Yeah,
it felt like China's kind of angling to have a better access to better chips and all of these other things. And now this morning they're saying straight up, like, you're not buying any US chips. Like, you guys shouldn't be buying them. You can't buy them. Cancel any orders that you have, yada, yada, yada. And so I'm kind of like, wow, either they're really serious about which they obviously are,
yeah,
and they must feel confident in their domestic ability to produce what is needed, right? Like,
yeah.
is that a sign? And you have seen their tech stocks rallying. They're at 4-year highs. All of these sort of things. And so is this just another bargaining sort of move ahead of Friday, or is this a legitimate, like, no, F you, we don't need your chips. We don't want your chips. It's not even a thing we're talking about anymore. And so how does this influence the conversation? Obviously we have the TikTok deal. First and foremost, and everyone's kind of like, well, why is that important? Well, it's the most pressing. It's simply because you have 170 million Americans that are on this app. And it was supposed to be shut down yesterday or today
And the
if
can was
they
kicked.
hadn't come up with something. Yeah. And they kicked that can down to December. But to have, the Chinese government and the
Well,
US government, sorry, go
I'll
ahead.
tell you what.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's the only reason. I'm not saying it's the main reason, but I wouldn't be surprised if, given what a tinderbox the US is at the moment, with what not going on. But one look over at Nepal when they decided to shut down social
Right.
media, and the
Yes.
kids went ballistic. And I know
Yes.
it's first thanks of we've got quite a a growing team of developers etc. based in Nepal. Thankfully, touch wood, everyone's okay. Um, but yeah, it's been an interesting one because definitely it might be part of the reason why they're like, hang on, let's just kick this can because it's already a tinderbox out there, and a lot of
It's
kids
probably
are
much
using.
easier, yeah, not to poke the bear right now. And the bear
Yeah,
is your youth that is blindly scrolling through their algorithm, right? So the
exactly.
new
Yeah,
TikTok is
everyone's searching for Angie dancing on TikTok apparently.
usually yesterday was me just talking shit like I normally do, I guess. But anyway,
Narrow it down a bit,
that's
darling. Narrow it down a bit.
that's what, so we'll see, kind of, but I do think the TikTok just to, um, it's going to stay. It's going to become a new app. ByteDance is going to own the less than 20% required. So they're going to have their 19.99% or whatever. And the other groups of US companies are going to own the rest of it, apparently.
Yeah,
And so, we do have a resolution there. I'm not going to say it's going to lead to like a fixing of everything. But obviously to me, it's a sign that, we're at least able to complete some level of deal, trade,
yes,
whatever. Now, $1 million question is, you had two different members of the administration, one of which was the president yesterday, saying that after the conversation on Friday, they're going to have a whole trade deal. Now, are we just saying trade deal and it's a TikTok deal? Or did we do the TikTok deal in return for something else? We don't know. No one knows. I mean, congratulations. Like, your guess is as good as anyone else's at this point in time, because there's so many different moving pieces. We're seeing the US and India back to where they're having conversation again. Does that help with the relationship with China after the whole, summit, a couple weeks ago or whatever? So there's just a lot going on there. And, obviously the biggest thing that we'll be watching for is any sort of sign, that they poke their head up and decide they want to start buying some US soybeans. So far, obviously, nothing there. So, we'll see how that, goes forward and what happens, but that's kind of where we're sitting is right now. They're saying no, NVIDIA chips, you can't do that. And so that's a bit of an adjustment here this morning versus what we had been seeing. And so we'll see what the rest of the week brings with it.
phone call.
Yes, it does. Over onto, I'm here. Sorry, just got a phone call. Over onto Harvest, Harvest Intel. I see Andrew, my friend Andrew is on, Andrew Johansson, and he tweeted the other day, make sure that you're aware of your biases with your early yield reports. And I wanted to let him know that I see it and I am aware of my bias. And so, there are those some really interesting, dynamics as we're getting further into, with harvest reports. And so obviously there's some good ones. I had a yield grace my inbox yesterday that was 288 in north central Illinois. The grower was very, very happy. Then there's a handful of others that are sub-trend in line with APH. I just had a farmer message me, a very large grower, in the eastern part of Iowa. And he basically first field APH yield. And my weather was 100 for the most part, a little dry at the end, but we had a full tank, fungicide, but the rust. And so that's interesting. He's going to kind of keep me posted as he moves through, but that's just kind of a continual sort of, yes, there are some really great yields out there. Do not get me wrong. But there are a lot of below APH that I'm seeing at APH. And enough of that kind of makes me wonder, when all is said and done, do we end up closer to trend or not? Does it matter because of the acres and all these other things? I don't know, but that's kind of where we're at on that side of things. On the soybean side, really surprisingly good yields in some spots. Like I had a farmer in north central Indiana, tell me that he was blown away by how well his beans did, was not expecting it at all. I think I said that yesterday. They had to recalibrate everything because they thought it was off. And it wasn't, it was in line. But I also have a bunch of farmers that are telling me 8-10% moisture on the beans that they're running. And we're going to have a weekend of more heat and dryness. So we'll see how that all plays out. We'll definitely continue to be watching that, kind of watch basis, watch spreads, all of these other things. And then really lastly, just demand. We'll be watching demand. We'll get ethanol updates today. Margins have been, strong there, continue to be strong. We did hear from the EPA yesterday on the reallocation of the small refinery exemptions. They were very helpful, because they said it'll either be 50% or whole. But we'll also look at, 0, 25, 75. Like, you tell us what you think. Like, what a effing clown show, right? Like, it's like, thanks for your help. You've been very helpful in that
Sounds
regard.
like very much like me when I start on Tinder. I'm like, well, I want, the blonde, beautiful,
Yeah.
blue eyes. But then give it me an hour, I'm swiping right on everyone, basically.
I wasn't prepared. I just almost put coffee through my nose. But yeah, that was basically what we're looking at in that regard. So, when it comes down to it though, we've got the ethanol side that's good. We've got the questions over the SRE, but we're not going to have answers to that until the end of October. It could be anywhere. It's probably going to land, I would say probably, wouldn't it make the most sense? Tell us if you like 50 or 100. Why the F wouldn't we just land at 75? Why do
Yeah,
we have to
right.
make everything so freaking complicated and have, whatever. Anyway, so we've got some of that going on. We'll get export sales tomorrow. We continue to see super solid demand as the US dollar moves lower, which today it's kind of recovering a little bit. But as it moves lower, it makes our stuff a lot cheaper. Again, like I said, there's starting to be some concerns arising, over just crop size everywhere. Nick, our friend Nico is on today. And I
We love Nico.
appreciate that he also is kind of reiterating some of the questions that I'm asking, basically like the Russian crop size. Everyone just kind of keeps erasing, and writing in these higher numbers. Like why? I don't know, cause I feel like it. Is it being driven by extreme harvest pressure? Not really. I think it's a larger yield. Like the farmer's not selling. And so he and I had a conversation a while back, a couple weeks ago and on like, if the market's not telling you that crop is there or that we're overwhelmed with the crop, like maybe our guesses are wrong on yield. Like what do we do? Just don't burn me at the stake or anything, but I'm just asking. And so it's nice to see some other folks
Please
kind
don't
of be
burn
like,
Angie at the
yeah,
stake because
like,
it keeps me sane.
right. But it's nice to see some other folks, kind of be like, wait a minute. What if, it's not, and there are silo bags, there is an increase in farmer stores, there are certain things, but like, maybe we're overestimating the crop. It's possible. And so I appreciate to see someone else kind of ask that question because I feel like we've just kind of walked away from critical analysis of anything anymore. If the crowd says it, it's that. And so I'm not, trying to blow smoke. I'm not trying to grasp at straws by any means. It's just if you have record crops come off, you should see harvest pressure happen. You should see
Yeah,
spreads widen. You should see basis weaken. You should see these things. I don't care if farmers have increased on farm storage or not. Like there are certain factors in the market structure that act like gravity. And so when we look around the world and we have, record crop out of Brazil, big fat crop out of Russia, big crops out of Ukraine, big crop out of France, and these markets are inverted, it just, I raise an eyebrow. So yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
no,
see.
absolutely.
We'll see how everything plays out. Markets kind of are back and forth today. Corn's up a penny, beans are up a penny, wheat's kind of mixed. And so we'll see where she lands at the end of it. But all attention is going to be fed and post-decision presser. That's hard to say. This afternoon. So I
Exactly
think I'm
that.
done.
Exactly that. Well, Angie, thank you so much as always. Absolute star. And thank you seriously for keeping me sane. Listeners, likewise, thank you so much for keeping me sane. And just, sometimes basically this is therapy. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, whatever you're doing, stay safe, keep it tight, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Much love.
Have a good one, guys.